Today we're not going to learn about tools. We're going to learn about, that mental model that makes you dangerous with any automation platform. So let's hop right into it. Now, one thing we don't talk about a whole lot is the fact that automation isn't about removing the work, right? It's about removing decisions. Now, hold on. Let me explain this. Think about it. Now, when you manually send a follow up email, you're not just typing words, right? You're making dozens of micro decisions. So, decisions like, should I send this now or later? What would be the right tone to go about this? Did they already respond? Is this the right template? And then you, in between the lines, should I personalize this line or this line? Now, every single one of these decisions costs you mental energy. So now automation doesn't just save you time, it also removes decision fatigue. But now here's the thing: if you don't understand which decisions to automate and which ones to keep manual, your automation becomes a liability. So you will just spend more time fixing it than the time you saved building it. So the first principle in automation is you automate decisions and not just tasks. Before you automate anything, you need to understand the three types of work that exist in any business or project. Now, the first one, which is what a lot of people say automation is about, is the repetitive tasks or the repetitive work. Now, this is the very obvious one that we get to see. It's part of the resume that we send. Oh, we're going to automate your repetitive tasks, right? Now, the same task, the same way every time, sending weekly reports. And this is what people think automation is for. And trust me, they are right. But it's only one third of the actual picture. Now, the second type we're going to talk about is conditional work or conditional tasks. Now, this is the work or task that follows rules. Now, but the rules have branches, right? So in automation, we call it conditional logic, right? So if this happens, then do that. Else, do something different. So basically, this is the body of automation that we see. Now, most people skip this part because it feels complicated, but this is the real power. This is where the real power of automation lies. So conditional work is like decision making, right? But in a codified sense. So it's saying, here is how I would decide now the system decides for me. So basically, this is what you used to do, but now the system gets to decide when to do this for you. So that is, let's paint a scenario. So if a client, pays within 24 hours, send them a thank you email. But if they don't, send them a reminder. And if they still don't, after 3 days, alert me manually. Now that's conditional work, right? Or a conditional task. It scales your judgment. Now, the third type three, is creative tasks or work. Now, this type of work requires the human intuition. In Zapier, it's something called the human loop, right? It needs the human feel, the human adaptation. So, like writing a proposal or handling an upset client or strategic thinking. Now, these are tasks that you cannot automate. And you shouldn't even try it. It's a recipe for disaster. So now most people try to automate type 3 and wonder why it feels robotic. So imagine receiving an email that just from the first line, you can feel the rigidity in the email, right? Now, you can't automate these types or this types of tasks or work, right? So, or when they get to confuse, or rather, when they try to manually work on type 1, which is repetitive tasks, or type 2, which is the conditional tasks, and then try to automate type 3. Now, that is a total recipe for disaster. Now, remember, automation, the goal of automation is not to automate everything. It's mostly to automate the repetitive tasks, the conditional tasks, so that you have energy and energy in abundance to attend to type 3, which is the conditional tasks, the work that actually moves the needle. So at the end of the day, knowing what to automate, no matter how complex the automation seems, is actually the key to building beautiful automation. So every automation that you come across, break it down into three components: the trigger, the condition, and the action, right? So these are the three basic components you should have in mind when you're building an automation. The first one is the trigger. What starts the automation? The very simplified example would be setting fire to the building. Now, what's the trigger? Setting the fire, right? Now, most people think triggers are simple. You have to be very intentional about your trigger because it's with intentionality that you build beautiful automations or beautiful workflows. So, thinking that you build automation when anything changes is actually a very bad way to go about it. But rather, it should be you're triggering an automation when a particular status field has changed from probably started to completed, and that's a good trigger. Why? Because vague triggers create multiple automations, and you don't want to keep running everything on the automated level. And that would bring a lot of chaos, right? It creates noise, and at the end of the day you burn out through your automation runs. You don't want that. Now, another thing you need to understand is that the best automations have the most specific triggers. Emphasis on specific. Your trigger should be as specific as they can get. Now, the second thing is the condition. Now, should this automation actually run, right? Now, the fire example I used, you set fire to a building, right? Do we need to call fire service, or is this something that we can rally around to put out the fire? Now, that's a condition, right? That precedes the action. So, knowing what condition that follows up an action is that precedes an action is very necessary in your automations, right? Now, the next thing would be the action. Now, remember, your condition protects you from bad data, it protects you from making mistakes because with the conditions, you're able to weigh your options and decide on which path or which action to take. Now, the next one is the action, and this is the easy part. This is the what should happen. Now, the first two steps precedes the action. Now, the first two steps are what determines what the action would be. And actions are the last things you design, not the first. Now you already know what action you have in mind, but what should bring about this action. So these are the basis of what every automation expert should know before getting to learn the tools. So at the end of the day, while learning automation, now here are a few things you should have in mind. What outcome do you want? Right? Start from the end. You already know the action, right? Now, how do you get to that action? The next question should be what will trigger the outcome? We already know the end. What do we think would happen for us to get to this end? And then the third one would be what conditions should be true? Now, these are like adding guardrails to ensure that you don't just fire automations for every slightest change the system experiences. And the fourth one would be you know the action, right? But are you very sure that you're specific about the actions that you require, or you're just putting up actions as they come? So you should be able to understand in full variety the action that is to be offered after the first two steps have gone down. Now, beginners do it backward and they want to send an email and figure the rest out later. That's why your automation breaks. So now you should understand why you want to send that email. What is the action about sending of the email before you decide to send the email? And that's how automations should be. So my name is Pamela, and I am a workflow automation expert and a no-code, low-code developer. Now, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification button. And yes, share with your friends so that they can also learn with you. Thank you very much for watching.